Brothers, how's it going? That's how we start, right?
Yeah. Oh, just hammering them right
Just
away.
right into
Right
it.
in? Yeah.
I don't get too excited about, and I hope I don't want to embarrass you, but I don't get excited about a lot of guests. Sorry, other guests that we've had, that's my bad. But I was genuinely really excited to talk to you.
Uh-oh.
And I appreciate you jumping on and doing it.
Yeah.
And I think I just slid into his DMs maybe a few weeks ago and was
You
like,
did.
hey, you want to do a podcast? But we appreciate you.
Stealing them away from the Western Hunt Expo.
I know.
Could be walking the floor right now, but he is in a sketchy
that's
little
right.
apartment with us.
Yep. Yeah, so we appreciate you being willing to come down and do it. Where do you live? You live not too far from here?
I'm up in Liberty, so yeah, an hour or so north of here.
Gotcha. And do you come to the expo like every year?
Usually come down here for a day every year. Yeah, we're so close. Might as well run down and walk around.
You'd said that you may be shooting this weekend, so where would you be shooting if you were shooting?
I don't think there's any tournaments
No
this
shoots
weekend.
this week?
I got so many, I always forget my schedule. I'm always like checking my phone to see if I got tournaments or don't have tournaments or whatever. Or actually there was, no, I think that's, can't remember if it was this weekend or next weekend. They had some of the USA Archery indoor national qualifiers that I was thinking about going to.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I get them all confused. We travel so much, it just kind of all blurs together after a while.
So how many tournaments then are you going to in a year?
A bunch. Like big, national world level stuff. Probably, I'd have to look at the schedule. I'd say like 17 to 20 probably. Plus all the local
gosh.
regional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus hunting.
But
it gets busy.
Before we get into that, we should establish like who you are for somebody that might not know. And why I was interested in talking to you is because I love archery. I mean, it's like one of my I say it all the time, but it's one of my very favorite simple pleasures in life. I just love shooting my bow.
Yeah.
So, give us a rundown. Are you full-time professional archer?
Yeah, I have an archery shop as well too. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I could be a full-time professional if I didn't have the shop.
And how long you been doing it?
I've been shooting forever, as long as I can remember. I started shooting tournaments at probably 13 or so, maybe 14, somewhere in that range.
What were you
So we kinda
shooting back then? Do you remember? It's for bow?
What do you say? When I very first started, I think my first tournament ever, I shot a Matthews Mission.
Okay.
It was like a Mission Craze or something, whatever they had back then. I can't remember.
I've got kids that are about that age, and my youngest shows a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Vegas shoot, we were just at the Vegas shoot. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But I was looking, just kind of walking down, watching some of the kids shoot, and I mean they've got full on setups. I mean long bars. I mean Excel sights, all the bells and whistles and everything. And
For youth?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
And
Parents go
that's-
just like any sport. Parents go crazy.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet. Yeah.
yeah. And as I was looking at it, I was like, God, I wonder how I get my kid into this. Like, I guess I just got to go full tilt. And
It's probably like hockey where you just got to run everywhere, get
buy all the stuff and
all
get
the best
into
of
it.
the
No,
best.
just
and-
start simple. Just get them a setup, put them in the Bowhunter class or whatever, and just kind of let them learn to love it, and then upgrade as you go as they get better and need it.
Yeah. So you started shooting just local shoots?
Mm-hmm.
Just-
Yeah, so I started out. We went to a kids league when I was a kid. Me and one of my good buddies. I think my brother was too young to shoot when we first started. We go up there every Wednesday night up in Brigham City, and we'd shoot. And it was just a fun deal. They'd have like a bunch of balloons and stuff. Like if you popped a balloon, you got a piece of candy,
Yeah.
and then we just loved it. And then once you got older, they'd move you back to like the 20-yard line, and then teach you how to score and that kind of stuff. And then one weekend, they were having a tournament there or something. They're like, hey, why don't you guys come to the tournament this weekend or whatever? And talked us into doing that, and it just kind of took off ever since then. We just went crazy with it.
And did your dad get you set up with all the equipment and the gear? Did you?
Yeah, so starting out, I just had like just my hunting bow, and I shot the
Yeah.
Bowhunter class or whatever. And then it was getting to the point where it was too hard to switch from like 3D to indoor, this or that. So I need like a target bow and a hunting bow or something, so I could run like hunting bow for 3D
Right.
and a target bow for paper. And then I can't remember. I want to say I was like 15 or something. I was playing lacrosse in junior high or freshman year or something, and I wasn't very good at that. And my dad's like, "Well, we can either sign you up for lacrosse this year. Or I'll put half towards a new bow." And I was like, "The bow done." I was
You were all in that quick?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Sounds like a way better deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was. I mean, I played sports growing up, just rec sports and
Yeah.
stuff, and just liked being active. But I was never all that great at that. And archery was something I actually could do.
What was it about archery that you liked? Was it that you were I'm curious, did you have like a natural like propensity to be good at it, and so you loved it because you were good at it, or
It is sort of. I just love doing it. I mean, I've always been decent at shooting. You know, I like guns, you know, shotguns, rifles, bows, whatever. I just loved it all as a kid. Like, if you could have wore out a barrel on a pellet gun, I did as a kid.
Really?
Oh yeah, just nonstop all summer long. We just beg our parents to take us to the store to buy more pellets and stuff. And then bows, you know, we'd shoot. So the kid that his name's Court Baird, but that's who we went to, like the kids league and all that with. I grew up like our pastures kind of like where kitty corner is kids. So we just spent all summer just running around shooting everything inside with our bows or our BB guns or whatever we had. So that just grew to love it. Like, we just loved shooting our bows. We go make like cardboard animals and like go hunt the little cardboard animals and shoot them, and just loved it ever since I was a little kid.
are you a good shot with a rifle and a
I
shotgun?
don't know what good is. I mean, I can shoot okay, yeah. I wouldn't, I mean, not compared to like the guys that do it every day, but
Sure.
I can like hold my own for an average Joe, I guess.
I just asked because I'm curious. I know a lot of guys that are really good shots with a bow that are also really phenomenal shots with a rifle.
I think it's got to be a good, easy crossover.
And I'm like, what is that? Because all the guys that I know, my buddy Garth, I mean, a lot of people actually, as I think it through, Wilkie, I mentioned yesterday,
Yeah.
guy's a great shot with a bow. He's a great shot with a rifle.
That's Wilkie's favorite saying is shoot or shoot.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what he always says.
Yeah,
You get fundamentals down, like it's kind of a good crossover. You do fundamental with the bow, fundamentals with the rifle, and then you could extend distances if you just
yeah,
can do it, you know, at close distance. And
yeah. That's
stretch it out.
interesting. I get one of the things I liked about you, Kyle, that you're pretty diehard DIY bow hunter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was aware of you from the target perspective, but then the thing that I thought was super interesting is I was like, oh, this guy's doing the same thing I'm doing. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, DIY. You hunt the Wasatch Front a lot, right? I think.
I spent a ton of time on the front.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. So I just wanted to note it, but that was one of the first things that like kind of drew me in. I was like, oh, Kyle's like, he's as much a hunter, because a lot of guys shoot, right?
Yeah.
Like on tour, how many guys do you think are actually like diehard bow hunters?
Most of them.
Really?
really
Yeah.
are, huh?
Like that, most of the target archers get started from bow hunting and then go to target archery. But I mean, there's a handful that don't do a whole lot of like bow hunting stuff, especially like the overseas guys. But the U.S. guys, most of them are bow hunters
Yeah.
for sure.
There's a lot of guys that are overseas though anymore, right?
Yeah, but like the ASAs and stuff like that, where it's
Yeah.
like 3D tournaments, almost all of those guys start out bow hunting and then just loved it and figured out they were pretty good at shooting a bow, so they just kind of took off with it. But yeah, most of us are pretty diehard bow hunters.
What was the process? So you got into archery, you're shooting like local 3D leagues and stuff, and then at what point did you jump to like the next level? How did that whole transition work?
Yeah, so we just kind of kept going to like more and more and more and branching out, and all through like high school, and I never went to any. Well, we went to Vegas because Vegas is something close that we could drive to, so we went there every year. And then I ended up winning that as a young adult. I think I was like 17 in the young adult class, and won that. And then kind of just started going a little bit from there. Then once I graduated high school, they started. First big one I went to was they started a tournament called OPA. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. They had that for a couple years.
Yep.
And a bunch of guys from, it was like an invite only deal. And I wasn't invited or nothing, but a bunch of guys from home were going. And then one of the guys, Doug Palmer, I think.
Yeah, Doug.
You know Dougie.
Doug's so funny.
Yeah,
I want to
so
get
I
Doug
think
on the podcast.
Yeah, so Levi was the one Levi Morgan ran that tournament. He texted Levi like, hey, do you got any room? I got a kid that wants to come or whatever. He's like, yeah, we got a spot. And so I went out there with them and then kind of just started traveling ever since then. And at first it was like I was going to college, so I just like pick and choose the ones in the school year, and then the summer I'd hit like everything I could. And then just kind of got better and better. And then once I graduated school, just kind of started going to everything and shooting them all.
When you won Vegas, you were a teenager? Like the youth?
Not as a pro, yeah, but I was
the youth division? Going into that, did you think you were going to, like, did you thought like, oh, I'm shooting at that level that I could potentially win this?
No, I didn't really.
You just kind of showed up and...
Yeah, I mean, I knew I could shoot good enough probably to get it, but I didn't really expect to win. But it's just, I kind of have a tendency a lot of times to shoot better under pressure than I do in practice, because I just gives you that little bit of edge. You're like giving it everything you got rather than just kind of lazily shooting your bow or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got down there and ended up shooting really good. It was a shoot off, me and one other kid, and then I ended up winning the shoot off to win the tournament. So
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I actually shot my first 300 I ever shot was in Vegas the first time I went to Vegas.
No way.
Yeah, I'd never shot
You've
a
never
300
shot
ever.
one in practice?
Nope, never.
And then you go to a tournament and do it. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
so and it was funny because my 2 practice ends, I think I shot like an 8 and a 9 on my practice ends, just like all over the place,
Yeah.
just losing my crap. And then they said, this one's for score. And then I shot a 300 after that. Like, it was crazy. I got about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, it hadn't even clicked. Like, I was just on cloud 9 that day, just off in La La Land. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I haven't missed any points yet. And I started looking around and like the whole crowd behind me, like all the people from home were like over there watching me with binos and everything. I was like, son of a gun, like now I got to do this. And so it was cool. Yeah, I wasn't shooting for PSC, but I was shooting at PSC at the time. And I took my target over to Pete Shepley after I'd shot a 300, and he looked at my target and he like points to like the 8 and the 9. He's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's practice. Don't worry about that." So he signed my target for me and stuff. It was cool. I still have it.
So I'd say for most people, it's the exact opposite. It's like you get you get your practice ends, and then as soon as the whistle blows, they're like, okay, first end for score. Like your first arrow, a lot of people drop their first arrow, right? First or last.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Like the first end and the last end are always the hardest, it seems like.
So what is it? What do you think it is in you that is different in that regard?
It's just that different level of intensity. Like it just kicks it up a notch for me. Like when it actually matters, I make it count. Where when I'm just practicing, like, yeah, I'm trying hard and stuff, but it's just not the same level. Like if you back me into a corner, I'm going to do whatever I got to do type of deal.
That's interesting.
It is really interesting. I'm trying to think like.
So when I went to Vegas, 2 weekends ago was the Vegas shoot, which if you don't know, it's like they're kind of touted as the Super Bowl of archery, right? So I went down for the Sunday just to go and watch the shoot off. And I think there were 27 or 28 shooters that shot clean.
Yeah.
Going into the final day.
It's getting ridiculous anymore.
Yeah. And I did a podcast recently, just kind of like observations, because I went down there with the intent of I just wanted to sit and watch pros shoot. And like I had little things that I wanted to like look for. And one of the things that I hadn't really thought about, but I noticed is, especially when you start going in arrow by arrow by arrow, right? So you get down to like the final 9 and you're not shooting all at the same time. You're shooting individual arrows. You go one by one by one, right?
Yeah.
Part of that I wanted to look at was I just wanted to like watch your people's body language. Like I just wanted to see what they were doing, with their head, their eyes, and just like watching. And that was one of the observations that I made was I've never really fully understood like the level of focus and like sheer determination that you can see on people's faces and their body language.
Oh yeah.
Is that how you would explain it? Like when you get to that point and you're waiting for your chance to shoot and they're going down the line, like what is going on in your head?
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like sometimes you'll run different mental programs or whatever. But for me, basically, it's like I'm going to crush this X or whatever, no matter what happens. Like I'm going to smash this thing, and these guys are going to have to do it to keep up with me, type of deal. Like I'm going to keep shooting X's as long as I have to, and the rest of them are just going to have to keep up with me. It's kind of the mindset I try and take. I
noticed that most guys, they're not looking at the other people's targets.
No, not usually, unless maybe like you hear the crowd going and you think that everybody else has missed or something, you maybe check it or whatever. But a lot of times, you just worry about yourself, and if you take care of that, you'll win the tournament.
Are you visualizing at all? Do you use visualization at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I do a little bit of stuff with that. And it just kind of depends. Like sometimes it depends on how I'm shooting and what I'm working on or this or that. Sometimes I'll run more visualization stuff. Sometimes it's kind of like a mental talk thing, just kind of like talk yourself through it to keep your brain occupied. There's different stuff I do, just kind of depending on it seems like there's always something you're working on, at least for me. Like whenever I practice or shoot, there's always something I'm working on. I'm never just like shooting to shoot. And so whatever it is at that time, or a lot of times, like if I get under a lot of pressure, a lot of times I'll like in practice before the shoot off, I'll try different things to see what I can get away with or what I can't get away with, or how hard I can pull into the bow or different things like that. And then I'll kind of find, a lot of times I almost find like one thing to focus on, and usually it's pulling. Like when I get in a lot of pressure, I know just to load real hard into that bow and just feel like I'm ripping the cams off the bow. And a lot of times that kind of goes through my mind, like in those high pressure situations, like just pull on that bow. Like whatever you do, pull hard on it, and everything else will kind of take care of itself.
Do you have a kind of a mantra that you say in your head, like as you come to full draw?
Not necessarily.
Like a process that I mean,
yeah, the process kind of will change. Just like I said, just kind of depending on what you found that's working at that point in time or whatever. I just kind of focus on those things or whatever. And I've got a few different things that like will kind of run through my head. So I'm a command shooter, which is totally different than what most people shoot or say is the right way to shoot. And there's different things that'll run through my mind, like little sayings and stuff, just to kind of keep yourself in your conscious mind. Like, I don't know, just different little things like, something a lot of times I'm thinking about when I'm shooting is this thing is going to go whenever you tell it to go. So you just wait for that bow to center up, and it's not going to miss as long as you wait for it to settle and then tell it to go. Like, there's no way you're going to miss if you just let that bow settle and then touch the trigger off. Whereas like a hinge shooter, a lot of times just like pull or something is what they're thinking. But for me, I have control over the shot, so I'm just thinking something like, you'll think like smooth or something like that, and just try and like make that feeling go through my whole body. If like when I say smooth, just trying to relax the whole body just to try and get that pin to settle and then touch it off.
Have you had any kind of mental management coaching?
A little bit. I do work with it's Headstrong is the company's name, but and she helps me a little bit here and there. I don't go to her a ton. Probably, to be honest, I should work with her a lot because the lady's really good, and that kind of stuff helps a ton with archery. But I'm kind of stubborn, just like most guys are. And I think I can do it on my own, and most of the time I can.
Right.
So
it's working.
Yeah, if you can't figure it out for yourself, you're never going to be that good at archery. Like, you can only go so far. A coach can teach you so much, but if you can't figure it out on your own, there's no point. You look at all of the professional archers right now, and yeah, there's some that have been coached to that level, but I would say 95% of them got there on their own. And that's why everybody can tell you what the perfect form is, but if you go down the line at Vegas and watch all the guys that shot clean, nobody has perfect form. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. They have commonalities, I would say, but there's nothing. I mean, I've always kind of thought, and again, it just consistency is what matters most, it seems, right? So as long as you do the same thing the same way every single time, there's probably not a wrong answer. Yeah. As far as form goes, or even like you bring up shot activation, right? So you're a command shooter, you would say, which has kind of been, I don't know, I guess in the last like 10 years, myself included, I've been part of that, being like, oh, command shooter's not the way to do it. You should, because I couldn't do it. I got target panic really bad, and I couldn't deal with it. I've told this before, but mine started with a Matthews Monster. Do you remember that bow? Super aggressive cam, back wall, and that thing would like want to jump out of my hand, and if I got lazy in the back wall. And I just developed a real bad case of target panic. But since then, I've always said like, oh, you should try to learn that push pull method, pull with your your rhomboids and your muscles. But talk a little bit about that, like command shooting. Is it really just between your ears?
Pretty much, yeah. So I always try and tell everybody like, you should learn how to shoot with a back tension. I think everybody should learn that at one point in time. And then you got options, whether you shoot that better, whether you shoot something different better, or whatever.
Do you practice with a hinge or back tension?
Not usually.
No?
Occasionally I may, but yeah, I don't usually ever pick one up. I usually just shoot with my trigger. But for me, it clicked a few years ago. And I was shooting good with a hinge. I used to shoot a hinge indoors, and then outdoors I would run a button with a really heavy trigger on it and just squeeze through it. And then we were shooting a couple local indoor tournaments, and I missed a point at like 2 different tournaments in a row. And I just got so fed up with it. And my buddy Gillingham that I travel with all the time, he's a command shooter and has been forever. And he kind of got in my head, and I was like, you know what? If I could just shoot when the pin's in the middle, I'd never miss. And then all of a sudden I was like, maybe I can. Right. And so I just tried it one day. And for whatever reason, the first day that I tried it, I was holding so good that day. I felt like I could pick where in the X I was going to hit. And it just all of a sudden, bam, clicked, and I've just never looked back since. It's as long as you can handle the mental side of it, I think it's a way more accurate way to shoot, because you tell it when to go. It doesn't decide on its own. Like, as soon as you wiggle, go off wherever. Like, when it's in the middle, you pull the trigger. But the hard part is handling the mental aspect, and most people just can't handle that.
Yeah. And I've always said, I know guys that I've shot with that are command shooters that shoot a trigger release, and they put the pin in the middle and they touch the trigger off. It's the most accurate way to hit what you're aiming at. I guess I struggled with target panic so bad. I think I've almost talked myself completely the other way to the point where I'm like, oh, I can't do it. and then more recently, I've been thinking, I mean, Jimmy Lutz is doing it. There's a number of guys that are doing it, yourself included, and I think you've probably kind of been leading the charge for the punchers, right? But it's got me thinking, like, what if I just made the determination that, like, I'm going to do it?
You can do it if you set your mind to it. But a lot of people get so in their head, like, they get so afraid they're going to get target panic that there's no way they can do it without getting target panic. Like, if you think you're going to get target panic, you're going to get it. That's a guarantee.
There's like, it's a self-fulfilling
prophecy. People won't even say the word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brady.
I got so bad at one
Brady,
point.
do you have anything to say about target panic?
Oh, man. I remember when I just literally sailed an arrow like 10 feet off the target once, and it was like, whew. That's when I knew I had to go back to the drawing board and fix some things. I was like, I just broke down. And just lost it.
It can be a struggle, man. If you let it get a hold of you that bad, it's a fight to get rid of that.
Yeah, I could never go back to my thumb after that. I was just like, I was wrecked.
You never had any issues with it? Anything like that?
Not really too bad. I mean, you deal with anticipation here and there.
Gotcha.
As a commander shooter, there's no way around that. Like, you're gonna deal with some anticipation. But for me, I'd rather fight that battle than fight dip bangs or whatever else you fight with a hinge or something. So yeah, you deal with that. But as soon as I feel some of that start coming up, I just try and nip it in the butt and get rid of it, as fast as I can. But it's just like any other aspect of your shooting. There's going to be things you got to work through here and there, just form or mental game or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So,
are you? I was curious, what's the pressure like on a line? So, like, if you're,
sucks.
Is it really? Is it heavy? Like, I mean, how
you sweating in anything? Like,
yeah, it depends on the tournament. But like down there in, say, like in Vegas, in the shoot off in Vegas, the pressure, it feels like the building is just gonna crush you. Like, everything just feels like it's gonna come down on you. And I get so like focused and nervous down there that I don't even realize what's going on around me. All I realize is like what's in front of me and what I'm doing. I'm so focused on trying to win the tournament. Everything else, like a lot of times I don't hear the crowd. Occasionally I will, but most of the time I don't know what's going around. All I know is what I'm doing or what other guys are shooting. Like, they'll be calling out the scores on the announcers. Half the time I don't even realize what the other guys have shot because I'm so worried about what I'm doing. But that's the thing about Vegas is you look at how many guys go down there that consistently shoot 300s every single time in practice, never miss for a month.
Yep.
Go down to Vegas and miss 2 points. Like, it's just crazy what the pressure does down there.
Yeah.
How many people normally are shooting Vegas?
It keeps getting bigger. This year I think it was like 4,500 or
yeah, they had almost $5,000 this year.
Yeah.
I think it went from when they were at what was the previous casino they used to shoot at? Do you remember the Flamingo?
I think it was it the Riviera before the South Point?
I think they went from like 1,700 to almost 5,000 this year.
Yeah.
Now they're moving venues, right?
Yeah, moving venues again because they just don't have the amenities for as many people.
Yeah.
It's amazing to go that many people down to one. The pressure of that.
Yeah, well, all those are in like different classes, but like the Championship Open, there's, I don't know, I would guess 300 or so shooters maybe.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
And you've won it twice.
As a pro, yeah.
Back-to-back years, right? And then once as a youth?
Yeah, once as a young adult.
Are you the only person how many people have ever back-to-back won it, do you know? Or multiple winners?
I want to say I was the third, I think.
Third.
I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think so.
Yeah. That's incredible.
That's insane.
I'm so fascinated. So like I got home, I was telling my wife, I wished I'd have made my kids come with me for the day. You don't get that many opportunities to watch people, no matter what the field is, that are an elite level.
Yeah.
I don't even care if you're not into archery. I think anybody that attended that shoot to just watch it would be blown away to just watch people that are at the top. They've mastered something. You feel like you've mastered it?
You can never master it.
No?
No. I don't care who you are. You can't master it.
What's it like shooting with? Do you shoot with guys locally? Like, who do you shoot with, and do you think that who you shoot with has made you better?
Yeah, so not as much anymore. I'm so busy anymore. I don't have a ton of time to shoot with guys and stuff. Seems like I'm always shooting like early in the morning before the shop opens or late at night after I close or something. But yeah, growing up and stuff, like we would drive like an hour and a half to different leagues because there was better shooters there, and you're gonna rise to the level of your competition. If you're shooting with guys that are better than you, you're either gonna pick their brain a little bit and get little things, little tips here and there, whatever, and you're just mentally, you're just going to bring yourself to that next level up if you're shooting with those guys. So right now, you know, like for me, even though I'm practicing at home, I kind of like look at what my scores are doing, and I know what I got to get to as far as like what I got to shoot in a tournament. So I'm just kind of like basing that, and I don't want to say like putting pressure on myself in practice, but like trying to force myself in practice to know what I got to do to try and make myself shoot at that level. Because if you just shoot by yourself every day, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. But if you're working towards something and know where you need to be, for me, like I know what it takes to win a tournament, how I got to be shooting, what I got to do. I just got to make myself do it.
What's a typical day of practice look like for professional archer, and how are you determining what you're going to actually practice when you're practicing?
Yeah, so everybody's totally different as far as like how much time they got or whatever. But for me, the shop stays pretty busy, so usually I'm there like in the morning before we open. I'll shoot for, kind of depends. Like if I feel like I'm shooting the top of my game, everything's going smooth, perfect, I might shoot for say an hour or so, however many that is, 60 arrows or 80 arrows or whatever. But if I feel like I got stuff I'm working on, say like a new bow setup, like right now I'm setting up a 3D bow to get ready to go next week. And I may spend all day long in there. Like I'm closed on Mondays at the shop, so there's sometimes Mondays I'll get there early in the morning and leave late at night and just be all day long shooting and tuning and working on stuff. So and even like if there's an aspect of my shooting that I'm trying to figure out or work on, like I'll just shoot until I either run out of time or get it fixed. Like it doesn't matter what it takes as long as I get it fixed.
One or the other.
Huh? There's a lot of times, especially in the summer when I'm real busy, like there's a lot of days I'll get to the shop at say 6 a.m. to start shooting and stuff, and then shoot until I got to start working and then work, and then I might stay there till 1 or 2 a.m. to go home and then come back and do it again the next day if I'm trying to get ready for stuff.
I feel like this is a question I wanted to ask. So I feel like there was a period of time where I felt like I got better at archery, and then I developed up to a point. I felt like my form kind of come together. I kind of doing all my own tuning and everything, but I felt like I never really got a whole lot better past a point. It's been maybe 8 years ago, right? What do you think somebody can do to go to that next level if they wanted to?
I would say there's kind of two things. Like one thing, like you were talking, is put yourself around people that are better than you is going to help you a lot, because you'll just pick up on little stuff here and there. And once you hit that level, just the little stuff is what matters from then on. Like you're just looking for 1 point here and there or something like that. Or and the other thing is just kind of like self-analyzing. Like you hit a point and say you've been shooting the same scores for like a year or whatever. Well, when you miss, why did you miss? What caused you to miss? And what can you do to get rid of that? And that's just kind of how I look at things. Like, there's a lot of guys that'll just be happy with the way they shoot, and they shoot the same kind of average scores for years and years and years and never get any better. But you either got to dedicate more time and more energy and efforts to that to try and like hit the next level. But the big deal is just figuring out what's causing the misses and how do I get rid of those is the big thing for me. And if you got to change something major to do it, change something major to do it, whatever it takes.
Do you always keep score when you practice? Do you shoot for score?
Yes and no. Depends. Like if I change something, I'm really working on something new, typically not going to be keeping score until I want to kind of like track my progress and see where I'm at. But if I feel like I'm shooting pretty good and stuff, a lot of times I will kind of keep score, because if not, I just kind of get lazy and I don't really realize like maybe I missed 1 or 2 X's here or there, and then I lost track of how far in between. Or something. So I do keep score quite a bit when I practice, just to kind of see if what I'm working on is actually fixing what I'm having issues with or not. There's always something that you're having an issue with or fixing or whatever. I don't care who you are. There's always something you should be working on.
Yeah. I just think like if it doesn't matter, then you never have the incentive to get better. So if you don't track it, you don't really know if you are.
Yeah.
And I have a bad tendency. This is what I do, Brady. You'll love this. So I go up to the range with good intentions. I take my notebook and I'm like, I'm going to shoot for score today, right? And then about the first, 2 or 3 arrows that I dropped, that I'm like, I shouldn't have dropped that one. Then I'm done keeping score.
You just stop?
Yeah, just like,
you started the process, but you didn't go through the finish.
I'm like, I'm done for the rest of the day. Yeah, that one sucked.
Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna go have fun.
How do you even get better, Trail?
Because then I'm mentally weak. Then I get frustrated, and I'm like, I shouldn't have missed that. What did I miss? And then I'm not having fun at all, and I'm like, this sucks.
Those are the tough days.
Yeah.
Those are the days that you spend all night at the range trying to figure it out, because like you started scoring and like the first scoring and you missed a point. It's like, son of a gun, now I got to shoot the whole rest of this game for no reason, but I committed to it, so I'm going to finish it. And that's what drives me crazy, is when I yeah, you just want to stop scoring and be done and whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, you just got to bear down and shoot until you fix it.
I think I was messaging you. I was telling you. I think the most progress I ever made is when we were like consistently shooting indoors, like Vegas spots, 3Ds. Do you think that there's something to that?
Kind of, yeah. You look at pretty much any of the good 3D shooters out there. They can shoot a good indoor game too. Some of them don't do it as much or whatever. I'm a 3D guy. I don't like target, but you look at all the top guys that consistently win. Most of them are going to be able to shoot a really good game indoors as well. To me, I tell a lot of guys, especially guys around home and stuff, they like shooting the 3D stuff because they're hunters and they don't care about indoors. That's just target archery. We don't care about that. But to me, that really tells you where your flaws are. Like if you're shooting 20 yards, no wind, no nothing. Like if you missed, you just missed. There's no excuses. You just flat out missed. And so I think that helps people get a lot better rather than like 3D. It's like, oh, I aimed in the wrong spot, or I was a half a yard off, or there was a rock under my foot, or
you don't have nearly a solid aiming point. As
there's so many excuses for 3D. Where indoors, you either hit it or you miss. Like good.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
And that's what I thought too. It's a lot easier to. It's just I'm much more mindful when I'm shooting a Vegas face because it's like you're saying, I have a spot. I'm going to shoot 3 arrows. I'm going to shoot an end. You've got 10 ends. Everything's kind of set.
Yeah.
For me, it messes me up mentally to shoot at spots. Like it wrecks me. Like I can shoot a 3D animal all day because I know, like, oh, I'm just aiming for a kill spot.
Yeah, so
it's really easy for me where I go to shoot spots.
But I think that's the point. I think that's why you make progress.
Yeah,
because it's harder. I think it's harder to do. I think it takes more focus to be really good at indoor.
Yeah. Well, so what happens is like when you're shooting at a spot, the visual feedback is so fast. Like, oh, I'm not in the middle. Oh, this, and then all of a sudden your brain starts going 100 miles an hour, and then you just off in the line and miss or whatever. Where 3D, it's not the same because you don't know where you know where you're at, but you don't know exactly. And so it's not like you're coming on and off the middle. So a lot of times people's like will calm down and you can aim and shoot and whatever. But yeah, as soon as you put a spot up in front of you, everything totally changes.
Yeah, you're more comfortable with your float, I feel like, on an animal than you are a yellow dot.
You don't have all that feedback of the target. Like a circle on a circle gives you so much feedback that you're trying to override as a shooter. Like you're trying to not worry about wiggling and moving or whatever, but as soon as your sight picture moves off the center of the target, your brain goes into panic mode, like, oh, I don't want to be there, I'm going to be back in the middle, and
then I had to slam it.
Just whack it.
Yeah, punch my hinge. I can do it. I can do it with the best of them.
Weed whack it.
Weed whacking, oh, that's a good
We saw some fools. I saw in Vegas, there was a guy, did you see somebody bounce one off the floor into the target?
Oh, I think so.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah,
I think someone went to let down or something like that, and their release went off, and
it looked like there were a couple of people that freaked out.
Did they exit after they ricocheted off the floor? Because that'd be sick.
I heard McCarthy shot the other target.
I think he might have. Probably a lot of times it happens at the half.
When you switched ends.
Yeah, because at halftime you switch from top to bottom.
Yep.
And then, if you don't remember it, it happens all the time. Everybody does it somebody does it every year at least.
Really? They should count that. Ouch. They were both 10s.
Yeah, it sucks, man. So every time, like, you walk up to the line after half, and all down the line, everybody's like, bottom target, bottom target, bottom target. Like, try not to screw that up, just get in your head, like, bottom target.
Do you shoot one better than the other? Do you struggle?
Not necessarily,
really?
No. I shoot them about the same. I practice both on purpose just so I don't get to like one better than the other.
Gotcha. What, I want to talk tuning here in a minute. I'm just curious about, like, let's dive into tuning. But I do want to know, don't let me forget, Brady.
Okay.
I want to know what the pressure's like between, like, shooting an animal and, like, shooting, like, for score at a big shoot. Maybe I'll hit you with that one right now while I'm thinking
I like that one right now.
Okay.
That's a good one. It relates a lot.
How are those related at all? Do you feel the similar types of emotions or feelings?
Kind of. It's kind of changed for me. Like, it used to be way worse shooting an animal than I did at tournaments. Because, like, for me, tournaments was always a controlled situation. I knew what was going to happen. Nothing was going to change. And I controlled the outcome. Where on animals, I used to struggle bad. I had buck fever like you'd never seen before. Like, shaking so bad, I couldn't hardly hook my release on my bow. Like, just a complete wreck. Like, especially growing up as a kid. Even
as you were shooting, like, professionally. Like, you were shooting those kinds of scores at tournaments. But
once I started to get that good, it wasn't as bad. But, I still struggled with it pretty. And I still have times I struggle with it. But, like, as a kid, I can't remember the last, like, there for, I don't know, it had to be the first 10 years I was bow hunting. I probably missed at least one deer every year. And, like, I was shooting a lot as a kid, and I was pretty competitive. At least on the local stuff as a kid, I was very competitive. And and just completely, like, I'd forget what pin I was using. I wouldn't even look through my peep sight, just like, kapow!
Black
And then,
out.
yeah, and then it'd make me so mad because you spend all year working for that one opportunity and then it's gone. And I think the problem for me comes from, like, it's going to get away. You got to shoot right now. Like, he's going to move. He's going to, like, something's going to happen. He's going to get away. And now, honestly, the biggest thing I did was once I started punching, like, once I started command shooting, my shots on animals have been so much better since then. But before then, I started to get it figured out and, like, take my time and actually aim, you know, like,
that's
kind of a novel concept.
That's the biggest difference, right? Is actually aiming. I think a lot of people just pull back and
I think that could have been part of the problem too, is like I was probably not wanting to punch the trigger on animals, but I probably was doing it thinking back. Like I just blanked out, didn't even think. And I still killed a lot of stuff, you know, like I'd settle after the first hunt or two of the season, I kind of like settle down and then I'd be pretty good after that. But once I started command shooting, I've made some pretty crazy shots on animals, like
what's
pretty wild stuff.
What's crazy?
I don't even want to talk about some of them. Like, shots
we're here for the people, as Lorenzo would say.
We would defend you.
There's been more than a few passed into the triple digits.
Yeah, which is fun if you can do it. I mean, I can't do it, but you can. So you should be able to do that, and that's okay under the right situation.
I killed an elk in Wyoming a couple years ago, just on a general tag up there.
Yeah.
You know, we're on public. My father-in-law was actually hunting with me, and I had hunted that morning. I went up there by myself. We'd hunted like the whole season, and I think I went back up the last day or second to last day or something like that. I just couldn't take it. Like I couldn't take getting beat. Yeah. And I had one day that I could slip out, so I got up at like 1 a.m, drove up there, hiked in, hunted all morning, and they were just screaming, going nuts. Like just that perfect day when everything clicks. And there was bulls all over the place. I was chasing them, and you know, in the middle of the day, they kind of settled down a little bit and kind of quieted up on me. And my father-in-law was coming in that afternoon, so I hiked back over and went and met him. And while I was waiting for him, he was bringing the horse. I was hiking that morning, but he was bringing the horses up. And I was just like hearing bulls like across the canyon, bugle and stuff. And I was just like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And so he gets there, we saddle up, and we head in to where I'd kind of left a couple bulls that morning where they had bedded. And we get all the way over there. You kind of hit the top of the ridge and go around the base on the other side. We get over there, and just about when they're starting to bugle again in the afternoon, we look back across right where we came from. And the bull I ended up killing came out of there, and we looked at that, took one look at that bull, and we're like, that one, we're going over there. Like, screw these ones, we're going over there. And we circled clear around and started coming down in on him, and his cows were like down the ridge from us kind of, and he was in the draw to the side by himself, so we kind of tried to get in between, and we ran out of cover, and it was starting to get dark. So it's like last day I had to hunt that season, last cover, like everything was just kind of like now or never type of deal. And that bull came across the ridge down below us, and there's a really steep shot down below, and that's part of what screwed me up. I ended up shooting way farther than I would have if I was thinking straight. But when I clicked in with my rangefinder, I seen what it said, and I'm like, oh, I can make that
makeable
shot.
Yeah.
And so I shoot, and it seemed like that arrow took forever to get there. It just like looked like it was gonna go 50 feet over his back and then just drop, and smoked Amy, ran off, you know, and we were all excited and whatever.
Yeah.
And then the kind of doubt started creeping back in, and it's like, well, how good did I hit him? Like, what happened? You know, so I get down there, and I'm following good blood. It was dark, following good blood, and then it starts like, he starts dropping into a timber draw, and I'm like, I don't know. So we backed out that night and came in the next morning just so we didn't bump him if I didn't hit him as good. You know, you think you see where you hit him, but then it's like, did I really?
It's that roller coaster of emotions, isn't it? That's the worst.
And then came back the next morning, I had smoked him. He didn't make it real far. Just almost couldn't have like stuck my finger in a better spot. It worked out pretty cool.
I have a love-hate with filming hunts. So I hate, I mean, for any camera guy that I've ever worked with, like I hate having a camera guy with me. I genuinely don't like it. Like I like the people. It's fine. It's just the whole process of like having somebody else in tow and, you know, doing stuff like this, right? But one of the nice things about having a camera guy is that when you shoot an animal, like you can immediately go back and pull footage and you're like looking at it on the screen. And I've had so much more peace of mind because of that. Sure. But yeah, it is that roller coaster of like not knowing. You think you made a good shot, but you don't know.
That's the worst part of bow hunting is from the time you shoot to the time you recover them.
Yeah.
The worst part.
I'd be curious. You said you've killed some animals where you, like maybe you didn't have as good a command as your shot as you have developed. And you've probably killed some where you felt you just knew you had total command of it.
Oh yeah.
Is it the best feeling, in my opinion, in the world is like having command of your shot and then making that shot on an animal? It's like,
Dude, it's awesome.
It's like a different level of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And I've shot animals where I felt like I got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I felt like I probably shouldn't have, like I got lucky. I made that shot and the pin was there, but like I didn't execute a good shot. And it's funny how I can split those in my mind and I can look at the ones that like I had control of my shot and I made a great shot. I'm like, yeah, that was it. Like I felt this different level of satisfaction.
Oh, yeah. It's cool. There've been several animals I can think. Like the one that stands out, I drew a tag here in Utah a couple years ago and shot a good bull on that. And I remember the day before,
Would you
you
say where you had, where was your tag? Do you know?
I'll tell you after.
Okay. Because I had a tag the same year.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, so I'll tell you a story. I have cell phone service.
Uh-huh.
I have a limited entry tag the same year.
Uh-huh.
And I see this photo of Kyle Douglas with a giant bull pop up. And I'm like, son of a.
Oh, that was a.
Dang it. There's nothing. I had like real envy.
You're jelly, huh?
Yeah, I was jelly. And it wasn't just like a good bull, it was a great bull. Like, how big is that bull?
I think he was like 368.
Cranker.
Yeah, he's solid.
Anyway, so that's a little back history. As I saw Kyle
Yeah, so
kill
it was
this
that bull, but it was like I think it was the day before I killed him, or even maybe it was even because I killed him at night, so it might have been that afternoon. But I was shooting my bow, and I had that bow dialed. I'd been working on it all year, and I was shooting at 80 at camp, and just wadded them like 3, maybe 4-inch groups with broadheads every time at 80, no question. And so I had like all the confidence in the world in that bow. And that bull comes out. I was kind of set up in it. It's kind of crazy how it happened actually, because my dad was spotting for me, and he'd watched that bull the last, I don't know, day and a half or so, and he'd been kind of doing not the same thing, but same area, kind of pushing a couple cows around. And so that night, I kind of set up on the backside from there for where I thought he was going to be, waiting for the wind to switch and everything, and then I was going to drop over and come around on him. And I hear a bugle like, I don't know, 300 yards below me or so. Just kind of early afternoon. And so I was like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, I was like, maybe I ought to go check that one out and see what he is. Because it's kind of a different spot than where I expected him to be. And next thing I know, I see some cows kind of coming out of the trees below me. I'm like, huh. And there hadn't been many cows. Most of the bulls were still single. It was like the first week of September.
Yep.
And then that bull came out behind him. I was like, holy crap, here he is. And they just kept coming right to me. And the cows got to be about, I don't know, 40, 50-ish or so. And the bull was hanging at like 100, 120 below him. And I just kept letting him come. And then finally the cows got close enough. I'm like, man, these things are going to bust me if I don't shoot him. And so that bull turned broadside and came across to 85. And I'm like, yep, close enough. And like, I knew that pin went down that bull, and I knew he was dead before I even pulled the trigger. Like, I was so confident in that shot, it wasn't even funny. It was crazy.
Hit right behind the pin.
Exactly. Yeah, like I couldn't have put a better shot on him. But just like from shooting the day before at 80, shooting so good with that bow, he came out at 85, and I'm like dead. Didn't even 85 didn't even cross my mind. I might as well have shot him at 20.
Have you had that happen before where you're shooting at home? I've had this happen so many times that I almost don't think it's coincidence. And I'm like not a big believer in like the cosmos. But I remember I had an elk tag in like the early 2000s, the Utah tag. And I remember I was at my dad's house and I was shooting through this gap. We had an old barn out back and we had like this missing slat in the barn. It was the only spot that I could get 50 yards. And I was shooting to this foam block and I shot for probably 2 hours the one evening at 50 yards. And then the next morning, hiked in, got on some bulls. This bull walks out. He steps out at 49. It was just like, and I've had that happen so many times. I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe there's something bigger working.
Meant to be.
Makes me wonder. Yeah, but it is interesting how often that happens.
It's cool when it works out like that.
Yeah. Hunting bow versus target bow. So I know you, like your target setup, people talk about how much weight you shoot on your bow. So like your stabilizers, how much weight are you shooting on like your target bars?
I'm not like crazy. There are guys that are going a lot heavier than me, but I'm running like 26 out front and 28 out back on my target bow. So fairly heavy.
That's a lot of weight.
Dang. That's way more weight than I thought I was going to say.
Do you have shoulder problems at all? Ever?
No.
Just
not yet. I mean, maybe by the time I hit the senior class.
I mean to jinx you, knock on wood, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That feels like a lot of weight to me.
It's not bad. So I run a lot of holding weight to counteract that. So I'm running like 23 pounds of holding weight on most of my target bows. So like if you were just to take my bow not drawn back, I can't hardly hold it up and aim it very well at all. Like it's way too heavy. But when I've got all that resistance that I'm pulling against, I can keep it up.
So 23 pounds of holding weight? Is that a 70 pound. I mean, how
Yeah,
much?
like a 70-pound bow on the. So right now, on like a Matthews title, like 70 pounds, 70% gives me 23 pounds of holding weight. But a lot of bows, I'll just screw with whatever I got to screw with on them to get them to that.
Yeah.
Like making custom parts, you know, to stop the
Your
draw
cable.
short. You know, I'll run a 1/2 inch long and stop it short so I can get the holding weight.
That's crazy. Making some custom parts. Huh?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm actually shooting a stock bow right now, but it's been a long time since I've had a bow that was like completely from the
Stock.
factory.
Yeah.
Like I'm always screwing with stuff. There at one point in time, I had like a big long bolt for a cable rod on a bow, and like
Yeah.
whatever works. I'm not afraid to change stuff to make it work.
Are you shooting 70 pounds indoor?
No, usually for indoors, but
Gotcha.
for 3D, yeah,
Yeah. It's like when you start going to ASA shoots and stuff, you're shooting 70 pounds. And
most
that's
of the time, yeah,
to get speeds.
yeah.
Arrow. Gotcha. How does your hunting bow setup differ from like your target bow as far as like weight? How do you look at weight and stabilizers in a hunting bow?
Yeah. So on a hunting bow, obviously I'm not going to pack that much weight. So I weight up my bow as much as I'm willing to pack, basically.
Which is how much?
Typically it's fairly light, like 7 or so ounces out front and 4 or 5 out back on like a 12-inch bar and a 10-inch bar.
I would say for most people that's more than most are doing.
Yeah, a lot of guys will just like get the regular stabilizer kit that comes with like 3 ounces on each and run that. But yeah, I go and I'll play with it a little bit if I have a bow that won't hold good. But typically on a hunting bow, I can get away with a little bit less weight and still be able to shoot it well.
You're shooting more weight out front than you are out back on your hunting bow?
Oh yeah, yeah. So if you look at like target bows and stuff, I'm running pretty similar weight on front and back, but I've got like 3 times more leverage, or well, twice as much leverage on my front bar as I do on my back bar. A hunting bow, I'm running a 12 and a 10, so I need a lot more weight out front to get the leverage the same as I would like target bow. If that makes sense.
Yeah, now my wheels are already spinning. I already know what I'm doing when I get home.
You're gonna tinker again, Trail?
Yeah, I'll be in my base. Yeah, I'll
I
just-
like a lot of front weight. Like if I set up a Bowhunter rig to go compete in a
shoot
Bowhunter, division at a tournament, I run a lot of front weight, probably like 20-something ounces on the front and maybe 10 on the back.
Speaking of that, did you see Mountain Archery Fest? Do you know what that is?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I haven't been to one yet.
I just saw a thing on social media the other day, guaranteed 10 grand for Bowhunter.
Ooh,
I was like, oh, you're gonna draw some attention. I mean, you throw
if that's how it is, yeah, you may
Right.
find me at one this year.
right. That's so yeah. Look into it. And
I will.
I don't know if it's just the one in Colorado or if they're gonna do that at every single event that they have.
Huh.
They have one in Utah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I saw that the other day. And I was like, oh, actually, somebody's throwing real money at a Mountain
cool.
Series 3D Bowhunter setup.
be really cool.
I want to know the best way you're setting up those stabilizer weights on your hunting bow. Are you shooting a Vegas face, trying to figure it out and then
I
adjusting, or you
usually,
just kind
on a
of?
hunting bow, usually I dial them in at 100. I'll just take and put just one of my favorite things to aim at is I'll take a piece of cardboard and draw like a black square on it. For whatever reason, the square, I can see the corners of it when my pin's centered, and it just makes me aim at it real well. And I'll dial in stabilizers. Most of my tuning and like fine tuning on a hunting bow is done at 100, and I know if everything's working right there, the bow's gonna shoot.
What do you do, Trail?
What do I do? I'm trying to think. Tinker a lot. That's what I do.
Yeah, you think you don't take notes. If you took notes and documented,
I
you
do-
would know
I do-
exactly.
I do take notes.
Does he have a problem with moving stuff too much?
I do. I get tinkeritis bad. Do you think people do that too much?
Oh yeah. So there's a fine line between moving stuff too much and moving stuff not enough. And for me, like you got to know the difference between when it's you and when it's the bow. And a lot of guys will just move stuff so much that they never know like what their regular setup is or what's normal or
What their
whatever.
default is.
And for me, the default's always that it's me. I'm always like the bow is a machine; it repeats itself. If something's not hitting the same, it's me. And then it comes to a point where it's like, okay, I know this should be working and it's not. So what's going on? And then I'll start screwing with the bow and I'll find whatever's wrong with the bow and fix that. But the big things for me, like on any bow setup, the only things I really tinker with much are like draw length, loop length, peep height, are like the most critical things on a bow for me out of everything.
Man, I'm so glad you said that. It's like you're
Draw, loop, and peep, huh?
Yep.
Talk
And
about
I'm talking like micro, like a 1/16 of an inch in draw length is a big deal.
You feel that?
Yeah. 1/16 is a little bit hard to feel, but you can tell.
Eighth. Yeah.
1/8 for sure. That's like a pretty big deal for me. But a 1/16 I can feel.
How do you find the right draw length for you? Like, what are you looking for?
So I'm watching how I hold and how I execute. For me, I run a little bit short for high pressure situations because I can pull hard into the bow and not run out of room, I guess. And I shoot better that way. But you're watching your holds. Like if you're a little short, you'll notice that your pin will center up good, but it'll have like real quick herky jerky movements out of the middle. Too long, you're gonna notice that it wants to float but not settle. And we're like really nitpicking the hold when you're really dialing in draw length. And part of it's kind of a feel thing for me too. Like I know I've been shooting the same draw length and stuff for so long. I know what feel I need to get out of my bow, and I can just feel if I'm overextended or if I'm crunched into the bow.
I wish we had our bows here, Trail, right now.
I'm like, forget this podcast. Let's just go to a shop and start
find a practice.
That's what I want to do.
You guys need to bring them up next year on like the day the shop's closed, and we'll just tinker.
Because I've said the same thing. I've always thought that draw length was like one of the most critical. And
absolutely.
I'm not as good though at finding it, right? So like I've always kind of my advice that I've given people is like if you had a bow or you owned a bow and you had that thing set up and you felt like you shot it really well, like you shot good scores, you just felt like whenever you picked up that bow, the arrow was going in the middle. Mm-hmm. Measure the draw length on that and then try to match it to your new bow. So I've got a VXR that I shot really, really well. I love the bow. In fact, Phase 4 come out and Matthews would probably get mad, but I didn't like the Phase 4, and it was probably a lot of it was just me and draw length. But the lift, I really like the lift, but I'm still struggling to get that same feeling that I had with my VXR. Right? Or my, is it VXR? No, VXR.
3X?
Yeah.
V3X?
Yeah, V3X. So I'm wondering if it is draw length. And
could be. So there's always gonna be a little bit different feel from one bow to the next. But if I take and measure everything and have it like exactly the same from one bow to the next, typically it's gonna be like it's gonna feel really similar.
Yeah, is that the same as Dloop length?
Dloop length is separate from draw length, but yes, that matters a ton.
But how much do you tinker with it, and like how does that relate to your draw length?
So basically for me, Dloop length is kind of when I'm setting up a bow, I'll use the D-loop to adjust how when the string touches my nose to where my anchor is. So if I want to anchor a little farther forward, a little farther back, and just kind of get everything locked in tight here, I'll change my D-loop length there. And then I play with draw length to just either to get the string to my nose right or just kind of like the overall feel of the bow if I'm a little scrunch or a little not. So I kind of have a D-loop length for certain axles that just kind of works for me. And so I typically am pretty dang close to that on most of my setups. And then I play with draw length. And honestly, I'm usually within 1/8 of an inch on almost every single bow that I shoot, across the last 5-10 years probably.
On draw length and D-loop length?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's man, I think you have to shoot enough arrows and shoot well enough to kind of know.
Yeah. You have to have a feel for it. And you get so in tune with your equipment when you're trying to compete at that level that any little tiny thing changes and instantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got bows still hanging up. Like the bow I won Vegas with the first time as a pro, that bow just sits in the corner hanging there. And if I ever get doubting myself on a setup, I go measure that bow. And I did that before Vegas this year. I didn't shoot very good Lancaster this year. And I was just trying to figure things out. So I come home and I measured that bow and I took my bow and set up exactly the same specs as that bow. And then all of a sudden I started shooting good again. I'm like, wonder why. I go back to my specs that work and all of a sudden I start shooting good again rather than screwing with stuff and trying new things and this and that. I just have to go back to what works sometimes.
The other thing you said is peep height. What do you mean? I mean, typically, I've told people what you do, set your peep height. I like to set mine so my pen is centered at 40, right? So it's kind of a middle distance if you're a hunting situation, right? So how do you pick your peep height? Do you pick it for the venue that you're shooting?
So kind of it'll be might be a little different, say if I'm just shooting 20 or if I'm shooting Redding or ASA or something, I gotta move my sight more. So I usually set it if it's one I have a sight tape built for, a 3D or something, it's in the middle of my tape. So if I'm shooting 20 to 100, I set my people 60 or wherever I think the most common shot's gonna be. If there's a whole bunch of stuff in the 40 to 50 range and maybe a couple far, a couple close, I'm gonna set it for what the majority of the shots are. So ASA, I'm setting my peep for 50 yards because most of the shots are 40 to 50 yards. But yeah, I'll usually start with draw back with your eyes closed, anchor, open them, and that gets me close. But fine tuning the peep height makes a big difference. And for me, I tend to go a little bit lower than where it is if I just open my eyes in the center, because for my shooting style, that makes me dig my anchor in harder. And I don't want to dig my face into the string because you'll get all sorts of weird stuff. But I dig my anchor in harder into my face, and that tends to make me hold steadier. And especially in high pressure situations. But I'll screw with the Peep Height, just moving it a teeny little bit at a time until I find what holds the best for me, and that's where I leave it.
Based on hold.
Everything's based on hold.
What about cam timing?
Pretty much even on most of the bows I've had for the last few years.
Dead nuts.
Yeah, on my Matthews, it's dead nuts.
How have you liked your Matthews?
It's been really good, actually. So I borrowed a TRX 38 when I was kind of trying out bows this year to see what I was going to shoot. And that bow shot good. And to me, I don't ever get super like hyped up on new equipment and stuff. Like a bow's a bow. I mean, it does its job.
Don't you
I
love
never
that
get all that
honeymoon
excited.
phase though? Like that first week, that's my favorite.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, me and this bow are in love. We're going to the moon.
Always.
Easy
And then,
trail.
and then a week later, I'm like, I suck again. Must be the bow.
10 upgrade.
Yeah.
Send her back.
But yeah, so I was trying that TRX 38, and it was shooting good. Like, it wasn't anything super special. Like, it was a solid bow. And I got the title. And the first day I set up the title, I was like, whoa. Like, this is the bow. There is something special about this bow. And I don't know what it is about that bow that's different, but that sucker just shoots. It really does. And same thing with the lift. I shoot that lift really well. I picked it up and decided I got to hunt with a little bit this fall.
Did you do some hunting this fall?
Yeah, so I killed both my deer this year with a lift.
Really?
Yep. And but yeah, set it up, and like the first day I shot it, it was already shooting like softball size groups at 120. I was like, wow, this bow shoots.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Have you played around with the shot sense technology?
A little
thing?
bit. Yeah, I haven't messed with it a ton. I put it on there, to be honest, I put it on there for a few days, and then I accidentally left it on and the battery died, and I never really charged it or used it much after that. When I get a little bit of time in between tournaments, January is like so heavy on tournaments from one to the next. A lot of times I get home on like a Monday and leave on a Wednesday for the next one. And I've been gone. Is this the first weekend or second week I've been home since the start of the year? But basically I had like 5 tournaments all in a row. But now once I get a little more time in between tournaments, I'll play with it more and see what it does for me.
I was messaging him last night, asking him the same thing if he played with the shots.
I'd love to know what his little hold pattern
So
is.
that's what I was telling him. I said, Derek Nelson's been trolling me. He sends me. He's like, oh man, Chris Perkins is like, his MOA hold on that is like rarely over 2. At 100. Which is like a calculation of movement at 100, right? Mine's like 10 sometimes. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then like it calculates a full score for you, like taking into account like torque and your bubble level and your MOA, your hold and everything. And he's always like, yeah man, he's always in the like high 90s. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, very cool. It's great, dude. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
but
slamming basically you, not subtly.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, because I've been asking him like, what does somebody that's really good at this thing called archery, like what does their score look like?
Yeah, I don't know what my scores are. I can't remember. It's been a minute since I played with it, but I don't hold as good as some guys do. Like, you look at somebody like Perkins or like Bo Bauf or I don't know, a handful of those guys out there right now that hold like a rock. Like their pin barely moves. And I have days like that occasionally, but typically I'm going to have a little bit more movement than those guys do. But that's part of the reason why I shoot the way I do. Yeah. Because I'm not just going to sit on the X the whole time and never leave. Like I may have a time it kind of leaves and comes back or whatever, but I can fire on the spot. And that's why I shoot the way I do.
I think that's cool that you had the self-awareness to recognize, like you kind of know yourself and what you are capable of aiming, and you're like, you know what I could do to make me competitive with these people is I could adapt and do something that works for me. Yeah. I mean, probably a lot of people don't ever do that. I don't ever think about it. I certainly don't.
And everybody holds everybody else on such a high pedestal. Like, you don't have to aim that good to win turn. I guess I got it. You don't have to aim as good as the guy that holds the best on the line to win the tournaments. You just got to fire all your shots in the middle, and you got to be able to handle yourself under pressure. And that's one thing that I struggle with. Like, if I try and set up a bow, I can actually make my bows hold better than what they do. If I go a little bit longer on draw length, maybe a little bit less holding weight, less weight on the bars and stuff. And in practice, when I'm super calm and relaxed, the bow will hold awesome. But the minute I get under pressure, everything falls apart. So that's why I set up my bows to shoot under pressure. And even on my hunting bows and stuff, I'll know, like, and it drives my dad crazy because I'll go home and set up a bow and shoot like 30 X's with it right off the bat. The thing is just shooting lights out in practice. I mean, just wadding up. holes on the target. And I'll go home and tear the whole thing apart. He's like, what are you doing? That thing's shooting so good. I'm like, I know, but it won't. I know as soon as I hit the pressure, it won't. And so I've kind of learned like my tendencies under pressure and what I've got to do, what feel I need in a bow to be able to shoot good under pressure. And I kind of transfer that to hunting too, because hunting is as high pressure as tournaments to me anyways.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do then at home to try to simulate that pressure so you can try to do that right there? Like you said, to have
a little bit. One of the main things I'll do is, it's maybe not that good of an idea, but I'll purposely get in my own head at home. So say like I'm practicing indoors and I'll have like a clean 30x gear, haven't missed an X, and I'll get to the last end. I'm like, okay, this is the last end to win whatever tournament. Like, don't mess up, don't miss this point. And like stuff you should never say to yourself, to purposely try and get in my head and make me like kind of get the heart rate up and everything and feel what I might be feeling. And then sometimes I'll do other stuff to like run down to the target and grab your arrows and run back so your heart rate gets a little higher, so you're not holding as good as you would be when you're calm. And that'll kind of tell you some stuff too.
I think just shooting with people,
that helps. The more exposure you can get, the better off you are, especially for somebody just starting out. Like when I was a kid, we went to every single tournament we could, big or little or whatever, just to get that exposure to tournament pressure and get used to the environment and stuff. And then you gain experience. Like, and for me, I still like to shoot a lot of local stuff, more as like a test run than anything. Like, will my setup work under pressure? What's it going to feel like under pressure? So I know before I get to the big events, kind of how my bow's going to feel and what it's going to do.
Have you come down and shot the color country before?
Yeah, I love the color country shoot. They actually moved it up to Ogden.
Yeah, they moved it north, but we used to have it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones.
That was really fun. It's fun that they always put money. Like there was decent money for a local shoot put into it.
Yeah, I won that one a handful of times.
Yeah. What do you use for sight on a hunting bow? And do you like 5 pins? Do you like a single pin slider?
I've been running a 5-pin slider. That's kind of what I've always shot. Yeah, just for 1600, it's quick and easy. And I grew up splitting pins, and I practice a lot of in between distances. I feel like that's something a lot of guys screw up on a fixed pin sight, is they go practice like 30, 40, 50, 60, and I'm always shooting like 57 or 63 or like all the weird numbers. And I can split pins pretty good, but I do feel like a single pin is probably the most accurate sight out there, because you dial like to the 0.1 of a yard. But 16 and I can split pins pretty well. For me, if I try and split pins too much, like I can split them past 60, but it just gets so much trickier. I'd rather dial at that point. If I'm going to take a long shot, I want to know that I'm dialed and everything is like perfect. But 16 in is not. I mean, for me, I feel like 16 in is a chip shot. Like that's super close.
Chip shot. Yeah, I like a 5 pin just because I've had so many different scenarios where a bull will come in and he might go from 60 to 20 to 40.
Yeah, you just never know.
And I'm like, I just need an aiming reference point without having to move my sight.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I've had a lot of people reaching out lately being like, oh, I want to go to a 3 pin or single pin. And, I like the field of view. And I'm like, yeah, but there's trade-offs, right? There's pros and cons with everything.
I don't like that clutter.
Yeah. What do you shoot for a release?
For target or for hunting?
Either both.
So for target, I use a thumb button. I'm running like a true ball goat right now. Yep. And then for hunting, I use a wrist strap.
Oh, really?
Yep. Just simply, I used to hunt a little bit with a hinge. Back to my buck fever days when it was way worse. I started using a hinge because it would slow me down and actually make me aim. And then, now I went back over to my good old wrist strap.
Why do you shoot target with a true ball goat and then wrist strap for hunting? Like what?
So one of the reasons was I lost a release one time when I was hunting, and then had a bull coming out and didn't have a release, and I was like scrambling through my pack looking for my backup, and and I was like, well, screw that. And then I shoot a wrist strap really good on a hunting bow. I mean, I can shoot that just as good as my thumb button. I don't know if that's just like in my head that's just what I shoot on a hunting bow, or what the deal is, or if I really do shoot one better on a hunting bow with the different axle and stuff on the bow. But I shoot one awesome, and then it's always like right there, ready to go, quick, easy.
I've often wondered, so this is one of my observations, and I kind of touched on this little podcast that I did, but I wondered as I looked down the line at Vegas, most people are shooting a handheld release, whether it's a hinge or a thumb button, right? There's one guy I think on the line was shooting a wrist strap style with an index finger.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything, one of the reasons I thought maybe people are doing that, and I found this in myself, is I think I have a more consistent anchor point with a handheld release because I have a better feeling because I can split those two knuckles, and I have like a much more consistent, to what feels like to me, anchor point.
Yeah.
Do you feel that at all? Do you?
A little bit. Yeah, I do anchor really solid with a thumb button because, like you said, I'll split those knuckles on my jaw and just kind of bear down on my jaw with that. I do feel like I anchor really well with one. I've always wanted to try a wrist strap for target. I just never have. I've never dedicated because it would take quite a while for me to get the muscle memory built up with that, like I did with my thumb button. But yeah, I would say the thumb buttons in the target scene are way more popular. Thumb buttons and like a handheld release in general is way more popular than a wrist strap. And I think there's kind of two reasons for that. The first one is there never used to be any good, like really good high-end wrist straps. Everything was just kind of crappy triggers and stuff. So you went to a thumb button to get a better trigger on it. And then the other thing is everybody shoots like a handheld release. So when you're growing up and you look to the pros, that's what they're shooting. So that's what you shoot. And that's kind of what you learn to shoot. But as a rule of thumb, the triggers and stuff are going to be better in them. They're going to be better quality releases because it's like a $300 release compared to a $50 release. But there are some pretty good wrist straps out there now too. They've kind of built some of those last, I don't know, 5-10 years. Seems like.
Do you like that True All Goat?
Yeah, that's good.
Because there were a lot of people shooting them at the Vegas shoot.
Yeah, I wish I could find a release that had, I think there's something to a gated jaw on a release instead of a hook. For whatever reason, I think they're a little more consistent. And Gillingham's always in my head about that. He's like super adamant that you have to have a gated jaw release because it funnels everything into one spot and then releases clean rather than the hook having to swing out of the way. Yeah. And I kind of think there's something to that because I shoot a blade really well, a True All blade. I shoot that really well, but it just doesn't hold up as good as my goat does as far as misfires and stuff go. So I'm running the goat right now, and I'm always playing with stuff and finding different things, but I just haven't found one that I like better yet.
Have you played with their, they call it the Ultimate Flex? It's a thumb button with the extending. You have the ability, so the crisper.
The new one?
Yeah.
I haven't messed with that one yet, no.
Are you intrigued by that? I am. I'm like, I think that's the neatest idea. Really?
A little bit.
It's gimmicky.
To me, it's a little bit of a gimmick, but it is something that could definitely help. But to me, I can adjust my loop length will kind of do the same thing as changing the head on the release to a point. I mean, if it's hitting like your knuckles or whatever coming through the release, you can play with that. But I mean, maybe it's easier to adjust than loop length and kind of fine tune that way.
That's what I was kind of thinking was if I could play with that anchor point without having to like retie a D loop.
Yeah, it's a little easier and quicker.
A little bit more fine tuned, I guess maybe.
But knowing me, I probably would end up locking that down like the same setting as whatever my goat is and just leaving it there because I know what works for me and I don't like changing stuff if I don't have to.
Yeah,
I kind of get set in my ways. Like once something works and I know it works, I don't touch it. I just leave it alone.
Yeah. If I told you my story about losing a release, so I had a handheld release. I was shooting a brass release. It's a True Ball HT Pro brass hinge. I was hunting on Kodiak. And I was putting a stock on this blacktail buck, and I had the release sitting in the front part of my bino harness, like kind of open, And I was crawling in on this buck, and there was a couple guys up on the hill watching. And I got in tight, and I dropped that release out of my pouch, my bino harness. It's just yellow grass. It's like knee high, right? And I couldn't find that thing for nothing. And I had one of those hats on, like those deer decoy hats, because somebody told me that they work on those deer, right? So I'm like looking for that release, and then the buck ran away. And then I talked to those two guys later, and they were like, "Oh man, we thought you were just trying to like really give that buck a show." Like we thought, I was on my hands, and knees with that deer head on my head, and they were up there. They're like, "Oh, we thought you were just really going for it. Like you were really gonna decoy that buck." I was like, no, I just lost my release.
I've never heard that story before.
You haven't? Yeah.
So did you have a backup with you then? Or?
I have a backup with me. Yeah, like I had it in the boat. So like we were on Kodiak. I'd stayed on the boat. I had it in my like my carry-on stuff, like with all my gear. I didn't have one with me on my pack, but yeah.
I bet you do now.
Oh yeah, I always have one. I have one in the hip belt of my pack.
That's where I keep mine. Ever since that one time I lost mine, I always have a backup on my hip belt.
Yeah. That was the other reason I kind of like a hinge because there's not much to them, on a hunt. They're pretty low profile and lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing for hunts this year? Like, what are you looking forward to? And like, how do you feel about hunting as it relates to like your target archery stuff?
If I could hunt all year, you'd never catch me with a target bow.
Really?
Yeah, would not happen. I love hunting way more than I'll ever love target archery. Like, it's a close second, but yeah, it doesn't even compare. But I haven't really lined up what I'm going to do this year. Kind of depends on what tags I get and stuff. I'm sure I'll probably hunt here in Utah, deer and elk here. But I haven't decided a whole lot of other stuff yet. I put in for Arizona, but they tend to be a little stringent on their tags and not liking to give them to me. Yeah. So,
have you done the extended hunts up here on the Wasatch?
Yeah, I spend a ton of time on the extended every year. I've killed, I can't remember, a bunch of bucks on the extended. Couple good ones.
What's a kind of your experience? It's like, is it as bad as people say? Is it that there are people everywhere?
Yeah.
Really?
It really is, huh?
So I've killed 2 bucks in the 190s off the front.
Yeah.
The first one wasn't as popular. The second deer I killed, I bet you I had, I don't know, at least 6 or 8 different guys message me pictures and videos of that buck from like the summer, whatever, that they were hunting him. Who knows how many guys had been hunting that buck that didn't message me about it or even know that I killed it, you know. But very rarely anymore do I ever go into a spot and not see somebody else. But like, you try and hunt the front in November on a Saturday, dude, it is just an absolute nightmare. Like, you can't go 300 yards without running into somebody, it seems like.
So how do you deal with that? What are you doing different?
There's a lot of different things I'll do. I'll try and hunt different times a year when it's not as popular, like before the rut and stuff. And I'll try and hunt. A lot of times I try to find small little spots that people don't think about as much. That's maybe, I don't know, either farther from a road or not as close to a road. But anymore, everybody's like, they're covering the whole mountain. Like, guys are not afraid to get after it, especially on the front. But I just try to find little pockets that guys don't hunt as much, maybe. Or try and like go out. If I can find a day during the week, I can get out instead of a weekend or whatever. That helps a bunch. And then another thing that I tend to do is, like, if I find a buck and I think he's killable that day, I try and kill him that day. Like, I never, if I think there's a decent chance I can kill him where he beds or whatever, I'm going for it. Where, like, if it's a hunt I know I'm totally by myself, maybe I won't push my luck that day if he's kind of in a so-so spot. But if I think I can get anywhere close to killing him, I'm going to try it that day and kind of try and force the issue. And maybe that screwed me up before, but I've killed bucks that I wouldn't have killed otherwise.
Because you just went
by
for
doing that.
You probably have to in a situation like that.
Yeah, because you know, like, tomorrow somebody's going to see that deer. And, like, if you have him to yourself today, you better try and kill him.
I think that's such a, I don't know what the word is for it, but people have asked me about those late season archery elk tags in Arizona because I've done those hunts, and I killed a pretty good bull the first year. I've eaten a couple of tags. I missed a bull. A lot of people like, how do you do it? And I like that's the advice I've always given them. Like, it's not rocket science, but really every single opportunity, like, you literally just have to make yourself try it. Like, you've just got to talk yourself into it, and you understanding that it may not work out, but you have to almost go for every single opportunity because you just don't know when you're going to get another chance because they move so much.
Yeah, that's how it is here.
And I can imagine up here with the pressure.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't take that opportunity and talk yourself into trying to make that stock, I mean, you don't know if that buck's even going to be there the next day because he may have been bumped, right?
Yeah. I mean, you think about the front, you think about every single person in the state of Utah, or even non-residents, that have an unfilled archery tag can hunt that unit from mid-September till the end of November, and it's like a lot of the core area that most people hunt is like right by Salt Lake. So you figure you got that many people all year long. The deer are so high pressured, so many people. It's just insane trying to hunt that unit. But it's just kind of my home turf, I guess.
Do you like that kind of hunt?
Yes and no. Like, I hate dealing with other people, but when you do, like, conquer it and you kill a nice buck, it's like the best thing ever. Like, yeah, you did. Everybody else, it seemed like everybody and their dog had that same opportunity. Like, they could have done what you did, but you, like, either outsmarted guys or got lucky or whatever happened, but you made it happen.
It seems like it's just creating really smart deer too. Like, they're getting hunted every single day by really good bow hunters.
Yep. And I don't take any chances, especially on the front. I try not to anytime, but like a lot of times, you'll say you'll be stalking a deer and the wind changes a little bit and you're like, oh, like, I think it'll miss him. Like, it's kind of coming sideways. Like, on the front, if there's a big buck that I'm after, I don't take any chance. Like, if I have to walk 2 miles and gain 2,000 feet elevation, go around the deer from the other side, I'll do whatever it takes to, like, not take any sort of borderline chance, maybe spooking him, that I can take, you know.
Are you a competitive person?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And everything?
Not as bad at some stuff, but like archery and hunting, yeah.
Really? Monopoly with the fam?
Yeah. A little bit. I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
Definitely don't like, especially at something I'm good at. Like archery, I hate to lose bad. I don't think you ever get good if you don't hate to lose at anything.
See, is that from you? No? No? Was he always that way? Always. Did you throw temper tantrums or fits when you were a kid if you'd lose, like at archery?
Not really. I just get mad at myself, and I get more determined to, like, what am I going to do for the next one? Because I'm definitely not going to do that again.
Yeah. I've got a middle kid. My middle kid is so competitive. Yeah. Like if he doesn't live up to what he thinks he should do, it's like, oh my gosh, the wheels come off the bus.
Sometimes it gets bad. Like there's been times like even if I take second or third at a tournament that I thought I should have won, I'll come off the line, be standing to the side afterwards, and like my wife will know, like, just don't call him for a little while. Just let me blow off some steam before, because I'm like fuming mad. And not that and it's not even as much that I didn't win the tournament, it's that I didn't do what I expected myself to do. Like I didn't live up to my expectations and do what I know I can do. And that just makes me so mad when I don't do what I'm supposed to.
Speaking then of all this, can we talk about the little debacle where the airline lost your bow?
Yeah.
How would you go about that? Because that seems to me the most stressful thing in the world, shooting someone else's bow for a tournament.
Yeah,
and here you are traveling.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, so I went to Nîmes this year, which is over in France, for a tournament. It was one of the Indoor World Series. And get over there and my bow doesn't show up. And calling the airlines and stuff. Oh, we don't know where it's at. And the most frustrating thing was I had an air tag in my case, so I knew where my bow case was. And I was trying to tell him on the phone, and like I gave him like the GPS coordinates and everything. Like, oh, we can't find it. And
you're like, let me go find it.
Yeah,
I know right where it's at.
Give me the plane, bud.
Yeah. And but yeah, I get to the tournament, no bow shows up, and so then I'm scrambling trying to find like somewhere a bow to shoot or whatever. And Stefan Hansen ended up having a backup bow that he's nice enough to let me borrow. And so, yeah, basically I kind of went into that tournament as, at that point, there's nothing I can do. It's like, what do? I just shoot his bow. I didn't want to change too much on his bow, and his is set up a lot different than mine. So I ended up cutting out his peep and moving that so I could at least somewhat fit. And the draw length was kind of close. And just made the best of it. I ended up actually shooting a really good qualifying score. I didn't make it super far in matches, but I qualified with a 598, which is really good for World Archery.
Did you beat some people with the backup with the bow?
I did beat somebody with
that's pretty
with
good.
Somebody else's bow.
I mean, that's the win.
That must be so frustrating though, to feel like you're shooting well with your bow and your equipment, and you're excited to go into it, and you fly all the way across the ocean, and you get over there, and like that's the hiccup because you don't have your bow.
It's like worst case scenario. You go to a tournament, and your bow don't show up.
That's like, lawsuit. Let's sue that airline.
I know. It's like that whole entire trip, in my eyes, basically is wasted. Like, you could win with somebody else's bow, but the chances of that happening, not gonna be very often.
Do you like the 3D circuit, like the ASA?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You do
I like shooting 3D. 3D is probably more fun for me to shoot than indoor and stuff. So I mean, I like going. Like Vegas is kind of a cool atmosphere at that tournament and whatnot. But as far as like the actual shoot itself, ASA is probably one of my favorites.
And you're on the road a lot, though. You must be, I would assume. All spring and summer?
Pretty much, yeah. Just depends on, like, the time of year. Like, January, I was gone every single week in January and the first week of February. And then, like, February, I think I've got an ASA next week. And then March, I've got a couple tournaments. It's just kind of hit and miss. Like, some months we'll have 2, 3, 4 tournaments. Other ones, we maybe only have 1. But, yeah, we're traveling a lot.
Do you take the family with you?
Not usually. My wife will come to a couple here and there. Like, she'll go to Vegas, and every now and then if there's like a one-off tournament here or there, she'll come with me. But usually she stays home and works. She doesn't like to take a ton of time off of work.
Yeah. She to teach at school?
No, she's a dental hygienist.
Dental hygienist.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, she uses her vacation to go on trips and fun stuff rather than go sit and watch archery tournament. It's kind of like watching paint dry. No. I got her a bow, and she shot a handful of times, but not super into it.
That's what happened in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got her a bow.
She has fun, but it's just not really her thing.
Yeah, I get it. Anything else you got?
I got one. So obviously you're on social media. Do you ever find yourself diving into some archery meme pages and watching the ruthlessness that goes on there? Because I catch myself checking it out quite a bit. Oh yeah, but I'm not a part of it.
Yeah.
So it's just all funny to me, but do you ever dive in there and give it a little look?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that, occasionally we'll look at her. People like, hey, you're on whatever page. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
You brush it off, or do you just...
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
No.
How do you feel about social media in general?
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a necessary evil for me. Like, if I didn't have to, I kind of like looking at stuff and watching everybody else's stuff. But as far as me posting, I am not about that. But kind of comes with the territory as far as archery and stuff. And that's kind of one of the goals this year is to ramp that up a little bit. It seems like you can shoot as good as you want to, but that kind of stuff is mattering more and more and more to sponsors as the kind of world evolves. So starting to work on that a little bit more, but I'm terrible at it. That's the very last thing I think of. Like when I'm in a tournament, I'm there to win the tournament, and then it's like we hit the end of the day or end of the tournament, like crap, I don't have any pictures. I have nothing to throw up.
Sound just
Oh,
like
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That's classic.
And so I'm like digging and scratching, trying to find somebody that took a picture somewhere to post up or whatever. But yeah, so hopefully you'll start seeing some more stuff from me come on there. A lot of, got plans to do more of like the technical side of stuff, like different,
Yeah.
bow stuff and whatever.
Yeah, giving
Yeah.
back in a way.
Yeah.
I was texting Kyle the other day. I said, "Hey, you were on Joe Rogan's. You know, they were talking about Kyle on Joe Rogan."
Jeez, I didn't know him was a famous, super famous person.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's crazy the reach that,
Did
that
you
his
listen to
podcast
that?
has. Yeah, somebody told me about it. I've had, I don't know, 15 or 20 guys now like, hey, I heard you on Joe Rogan. I
Yeah.
heard you on Joe Rogan. I'm like, holy cow, like, a ton of people listen to that.
Yeah, I think everybody listens to it. I just was surprised how into it he is, how into archery he is.
Yeah, he loves it. He
But-
stopped by the shop one time on his way to come hunting here in Utah. He needs
Oh,
some
really?
arrows. Yeah, so I sent him up some arrows and stuff. But yeah, he's super. He was all about like the hunting stories and what do you do with this? How do you do this? And, like
Yeah.
he's a cool dude.
He seems like, technically kind of a geek. He's deep into it.
Yeah, kind of like most of us.
Yeah.
Like,
Did you know Kyle has a degree in engineering? Do you?
It kind of fits.
Yeah, does it? Do you think you'll end up doing anything with that? Do you like plans as far as like within the archery space?
potentially I could see something like that coming down the road. So it's funny because I went to school for that, and I was planning on just picking up a job engineering and kind of rolling with that. But then like the semester that I was getting ready to graduate was when I won Vegas. And then everything just like all
Changed.
kinds of doors opened up for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ride the archery thing for as long as I can and see what happens. And if that fizzles, then I'll be an engineer and go about life. And so far, I'm still on the archery thing.
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks to have a degree that I went through all that work and paid for and don't get to use. But maybe one day.
I think that's how a lot of us go, though.
You're talking to two people that did this. I mean, we
We have biology degrees
Yeah.
and we don't do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for the Division of Wildlife for a few years, and he worked for
United States Fish and
Fish and Wildlife,
Yeah.
and then I mean, ultimately, it wasn't where we landed, but I mean, you
Here
like
we
to
are.
hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
killing them better than
in
studying
our
them.
favor, but learn about biology, about animals.
Yeah, I mean, if you like to hunt, you like
Yeah.
to hunt, right?
Exactly.
I think it's cool to hear you say that. Like, if you could just hunt all year, you would. And
Oh, yeah.
that's what I picked up on, and that's why I was interested in having you on, because I'm like, this is a dude that genuinely just is like, he loves to hunt.
Yeah, I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and that's why he's here when he could be practicing and do something else. He's at the Western Hunt Expo. 'Cause he
Will
loves
you
to
shoot
hunt.
arrows today? Will you practice today?
I might shoot tonight. They're running 3D league tonight, and I was actually gonna see if I could get sighted in quick enough tonight to go do a little test run on that. But I don't know if I'll make it home in time or not.
When you show up to the local 3D league, does everybody go like, "Oh man, come on, what are we?"
Sometimes, yeah, I don't shoot them a whole lot anymore because people get a little frustrated. So, but I'll just do them every now and then, just like for fun or to test my setup or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and sometimes I do it just cause you get. Occasionally, you get somebody in there that kind of starts thinking they're a little bit hot stuff or whatever, so I go shooting.
That's a crazy
Not like I'm
feeling
just
to
gonna
have
beat
to
them,
walk
but
in.
typically I kind of know my limitations.
Yeah.
So,
We had. Do you know Roger Hoyle?
not well, but I know who he
him?
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lives there in Cedar City.
Uh-huh.
He's won Vegas. He's won.
He's a good shooter.
Yeah, won Reading. I remember a few years ago, Color Country. He just showed up with a old Martin that he resurrected out of the closet.
I think I was there that year. Did
You
you have
were-
the shaved down cable rod to make a
shaved
flex
out.
rod on
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
shot phenomenally. I think did you win that year?
I can't remember
I can't
who won
remember
that
either,
year.
but I remember he was probably top 3 with a bow
Yeah.
he just pulled out of the closet and kind of shinned it together.
Yeah.
He's a dude that I would watch that guy hold and I'm like, I don't get it. Just so solid.
He's solid. And that guy has such a strong mental game, too. Like,
Yeah.
you just can't phase him. He's just the same. No matter what, he's just the same. Just level.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've had you for how long? Hour and a half. I got one more question.
Okay.
If somebody wants to get better with their bow and arrow for both target archery and in bow hunting, like a couple pieces of advice.
First one is probably dedication. You're not going to do it unless you spend the time and effort to like actually learn and practice and do it. And the other, I guess it's different for different people at different levels in their career, archery career. But somebody just getting started, there's so much stuff online. People get flooded and then they don't know where to go because somebody told me this and somebody told me this and do this and do that. Find somebody that you know, that you trust, and do what they say until you get to the level where you know what's right and wrong for you, and you can kind of go on your own from there. But so many people listen to 10,000 different ideas, and then they spin in circles because they don't know which way is up from down. And a lot of guys get way too technical, way too fast. Like you'd be way better off spending the same amount of time shooting your bow as you do looking up stuff online trying to figure out how to shoot better. Like if you just took that time and dedicated to actually practicing, it would do leaps and bounds for you. And then, it's different for everybody. Some guys, it's like stop tinkering with your bow and just shoot it. Other guys, it's like, maybe work on your mental game, or maybe your bow is like totally set up like garbage and you need to actually like make sure it's tuned good before you go shoot. Yeah, the big thing for me is probably just dedication. Like if you want to be good at something, there's no way around the time and effort spent practicing and learning.
I like that.
That's a good one.
Nailed it.
I liked it. Give us a plug for your bow shop.
Douglas Archery. We're up in Ogden. So we're not a real big shop, but we try and make sure like when stuff leaves the door, it's done right. We try and have a decent amount of decent stuff in stock. Like we're not huge. We don't have tons of brands and stuff, but I try not to have crap lying around. Like if I sell you something, I'm going to sell you something good.
Mm-hmm. Do you have technicians that work there for you, or are you doing a lot of the work?
It kind of depends. I travel a ton, so I do have a guy that works for me, kind of part-time. He retired, now he works for me, and then my dad helps me a bunch. My uncle helps me a bunch. I work there a whole bunch. So it's just kind of a family deal.
I like that.
So,
yeah. And it's at the Baku or Baku.
Yeah, the Baku Center.
Baku.
So Baku e-bike sponsors. Weber County is actually who built the range. So we got a 60-yard indoor range. I'm like a vendor inside of the Baku Center there.
Oh,
that's
what
they call the
you
range.
can come to the shop and shoot.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty slick setup, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like as far as like square footage wise, our shop is tiny, but we get the whole range and everything kind of with it. So I can't beat the location for that.
Yeah. Well, cool. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was an awesome podcast. Like I said, we should have brought our bows.
Yeah, I mean now
You drove up here, Trail. You could have brought your bow.
Yeah, I know.
Go home and get it tonight. We'll play with it.
Yeah.
You should have seen my truck packed full of stuff. But no, it really does make me. I would really love to. I would love to sit down and just like run through setups and just pick your brain like on a more detailed level. Being able to look at the equipment. You probably get asked that a bit, but
yeah, no, I'm always happy to help. You just call me whenever or come up to the shop and
I used to bug Wilkie a little bit. I'd be like, hey, bow arm straight bent. What do you think?
Yeah,
he'd chime in, but I don't know. I think that's good advice to try to find somebody that knows what they're doing. We say the same thing with hunting. I mean, the highest hurdle, I think, to getting into hunting is just knowing what you're doing and where to go. And, like, if you can attach yourself to a mentor, even just for a day.
You learn so much. It took somebody 20 years to learn. You can learn that in a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. We appreciate you guys both coming. Thanks for letting him hang out and just sitting tight. And we'll cut you guys loose and get to the expo. And hopefully you guys draw some tags.
Cross my fingers.
Yeah.
They got to give me one sooner or later, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
That's what I can.